Kitsune, cleverness, foresight, and adaptability. And I don't normally do readings this close together, but this one seemed like it was done cooking, if you will. I had an interesting synchronicity this morning. That charm that I didn't know what it was at the beginning of the last reading, they thought was like a whale tail. I'm pretty sure it was actually a ginkgo leaf. I think I'm saying that right. Um, but I randomly caught a video from a gal that I follow on Instagram. She makes wax seals, like really fancy ones. Strictly Rita is the account name. They're super cute, but it looked exactly like that charm that I didn't know what it was. And it has a lot of interesting symbolism, namely resiliency and being a survivor, because it was known to survive the atomic bomb in the 40s. So, kind of mirrors lotus symbolism in a lot of ways. But wanted to get some more charms out, a little more micromancy to get started here. And there was a couple Scrabble tiles caught in this little mat. Um, O and the blank tile. And I treat that like the blank rune, like chaos energy, creative energy that hasn't taken form yet. So we've got V, D. I don't like how that came out. Hopefully you don't have VD. Like, hopefully that's not a new revelation, anything like that. But another blank one, blank tile. Another I, two eyes. N. Another O. S. E. And another N. Sun. Sin. Den. VOD. Video on demand. I don't really see any other words here. Let's see what charms we have. A little butterfly. So transformation, growth. Pumpkin. Another pumpkin. Two leaves, but two different colors. Red and green. So Christmas, maybe, Christmas time. An acorn. Those have an interesting backstory. A little wreath. We've got the Triskelion, the life, death, and rebirth cycle, a symbol that gets associated to the Morrigan a lot. And a moon and a star. Which, that's reminding me, like Islam. I think that's a common symbol. So a couple of like faith-based symbols. And the transformation and growth is really what's standing out to me. Because that's kind of where the last reading left off. Was that I mean, in a way, what am I getting at here? Because someone was trying to impede forward motion, maybe in some way. Well, let's see. We'll start getting some cards out. So maybe those symbols mean something to you, those letters. Those random words that I was able to come up with. Let's see. Got the Moonology out here because I wanted to dig into what's hidden. And that is very Kitsune energy, the trickster, but also the tester of moral character. There's a lot of folklore around people being tested with temptations like greed and lust and such. Has a very Aishi, Fae kind of vibe to them. So what do we need to know about Kitsune? The end of a tough cycle approaches. Full moon in Capricorn. And that reminds me, I was wrong about those dates for the Sagittarius full moon. It's a blue moon this month. So we started the month with a Scorpio full moon, and we're finishing with a Sagittarius full moon. So maybe that lunar cycle is significant in some way. So what about the end of this tough cycle? Oop. That was a distinct plop. We've got Five of Wands, Queen of Cups, and Two of Cups and Ace of Cups in reverse. So conflict, an emotional conflict. This could be a breakup. Because Two of Cups, Ace of Cups, that does point to a relationship, end of a tough cycle. Could it be a divorce? The Five of Wands is what is throwing me for a loop, though. Maybe a lot of family drama involved in this. So Queen of Cups, she's very nurturing. But I wonder, it's kind of bringing to mind those typical tropes that you hear about a lot when often it's the man who is saying, oh, the divorce came out of nowhere. Meanwhile, she's been saying the entire time, like, what the problems are, things like that. And that will erode the foundations of a relationship pretty quick. Because that could also bleed into, like, perception management. Like, she's so demanding, she's so this, that, and the other. Meanwhile, trying to manage boundaries, manage emotional health. So that could be this tough cycle, especially if there's kids involved. But that was pretty clear, all four of those just plunking out like that. So what else do we need to know about this tough cycle? Nothing is yet set in stone. Mutable moon. Brought Pisces to mind. You and your loved ones are safe. New moon in Cancer. A tense separation. Maybe someone knows the end of the cycle is approaching. And so there's like a temporary escalation in like tempers, conflict. Maybe they know that whatever it is they're after in the divorce, separation, whatever this is, it's not going to go their way. And so there's like a, I don't want to use temper tantrum because it really minimizes the danger that people get put in these situations. Peppermint tea is still a little hot. So what? Oh, please. That connection between Kitsune and whoever's acting out. That's what's like tugging at me right now. Did they do something that like violated some, I don't know, it did something to break the perception that they were trying to create, because that happens with Kitsune, that their true nature inadvertently gets revealed when they're being careless, through drinking, things like that. So maybe that's the stage you're in. Tell me more. Nothing yet set in stone, so this is still in process, but it's coming to an end. So maybe they think things are going to go their way, but they're not. Yeah, they're not. We've got death here. And this is a particularly gnarly story. I actually want to get the book for this. Let's see. This is a Yokai Tarot. Open right to it. Keywords: end, passage, transformation, cleansing, irreversibility. Words. There we go. When the goddess Izanami, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, when she passed away, her brother and husband Izanagi decided to venture into the underworld to retrieve her. However, frightened by the horrid and rotting body of what was once his beautiful companion, the god fled, chased by the curses and minions of Izanami. As he performed ritualistic cleansing, Izanagi gave birth to the deities known as the Three Precious Children. This story shows the hardships of loss, but facing and processing the irreversible is the only way to overcome it. Don't let the past torment you. Death is but a passage that leaves a place for the new. So maybe having a difficult reckoning that this isn't the person that you got with. You know, there's been drastic changes in behavior, potentially. Maybe they've fallen to temptation, to addiction, getting caught up in the shadow, where that's now taking control, has more of an influence over behavior than what we would normally like, you know, because that's where our vices live. That's where unaddressed wounds live. It can get really out of hand really quickly. But I'm getting a sense of like worry for the children. that you and your loved ones are safe. So maybe there's some fears around that going on. Yeah, concerned about it not going in the children's favor. It's judgment in reverse. But nothing is yet set in stone. And man, that would be a pretty heavy worry to carry. Kids can get caught up in a lot of stuff they don't deserve to be in the middle of, just through failures of the courts, of sometimes even clinicians getting manipulated by somebody antagonistic, you know, trying to manipulate the perception and things like that. And then kids get used like, I don't even know what the word is, but like an example that this person deserves to win the case or something. Because there's something that happens in divorces. I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. Suddenly, the maybe not physically absent, but emotionally absent party will step up and start like spending time with the child and whatnot, being very diligent about making sure there's outings and there's plans and things like that. And you can sense when you're a kid that something's not right. But you can't put your finger on it because you're a kid, you know, and you're finally getting the attention that you've always deserved. But it's like a manipulation tactic. And so you get caught up in these games that should not be happening at all, like first and foremost, but be relegated to the parents. I didn't think this was going to go this deep. Because it's quite a turn from the last reading, because it was like trying to steal work, maybe like intellectual property or something. But it's drawing me back to that acorn charm, because acorns are kind of funny in the way that they grow trees. I've got the High Priestess in reverse here. But they're kind of funny in the way that they grow trees, in that squirrels will gather them up, hide them around, and they just kind of forget where the acorns were. Or, you know, inevitably sometimes things happen to squirrels. But it's like this unintentional act that yields this big beautiful tree. So I don't know if you've done something that you forgot about that's about to blossom. But the High Priestess, she's about secrets, secret knowledge, things like that. So maybe it's something this person did that's going to result in poor judgment. That it's like an acorn that was left in the ground that they forgot about. That feels more right. Like, of course, I would want to see like the positive thing occur. You know, you get the tree with all the fruits and it's amazing. But I think this is going to be more in the direction of something not so pleasant coming to the surface, but could help bring the situation to a close. What's the secret? That's what I want to know. What is the secret? Because that is a, okay, a lot of Capricorn energy. That is a big theme with Kitsune, keeping their nature a secret, like marrying a human under the condition that their nature is never revealed, but then it weighs so heavily on them, like eventually there's a betrayal. Hard work is paying off. New moon in Capricorn. So it's a full lunar cycle. Maybe it's this month. Maybe you're neck deep in this. Or you've been steadfast going through this. Because you can't control what that other person does. But you can make the best case you can for your own situation. Because I remember when my parents split, it was a nightmare. And I was like this pawn, almost. I don't really know what word to use. But it was like deciding who gets to deal with me. Like, how about you deal with the environment you're creating at home? You know? Like, take a little accountability for what you're fostering rather than just pointing the finger and going, well, she's difficult and stubborn, behavioral issues. Like, yeah, and where'd those come from? Like, how do those happen? I just cannot believe, looking back, that got past so many people. So maybe you're seeing something like that. Like there's some sort of behavior beginning, maybe, in your kids, maybe even in your pets, but you're starting to see the environment, things like that, affect them. And so we're trying to bring this cycle to an end. So what about hard work paying off? Knight of Wands. Oh, King of Wands. I was reading it upside down. So, a presentation of, like, lesser rank than they actually have? Or you've got something, like you're ready for this case, whatever it is you're dealing with, and you're just not playing your hand. You're waiting for the right time, so you don't really want to come across like a King of Wands. You want to be interpreted as a knight, which is very like trickery, like Kitsune, presenting a different persona than the truth. And that, I don't know, I feel like that's one of those things that antagonistic people will, like, double standard. Like, it's okay for them to wear a mask and pretend to be someone they're not to get their way, but if you do it, suddenly you're evil, you're manipulative, whatnot. Like, projection is one of those things that what has been seen cannot be unseen, and it kind of it ruins a lot of stuff for you. You cannot unsee that once you understand projections, or even get like a passing familiarity with them. So what else about this King of Wands? Queen of Wands and Queen of Swords, both in reverse. Is the behavior that's popping up like the acorn that they were cheating? And I'm sorry if that's the case. That's really difficult to go through. But it's bringing me back to that, like, VD. That was the first thing that came out of the Scrabble tiles. Which I'm going through. I don't want to make light of what somebody's going through health-wise. And we all know safe practices, things like that. You know, things of course can still happen. But I'm getting more of a vibe like consequences of risky behavior, things like that. And it's not about taking digs at them. It's more about what is not a healthy environment for the kiddo or the kiddos or the pets, even. Any sort of dependent. Maybe that's one of those projections that, like, when you get accused of cheating, that's an immediate, like, suspicion, like, hey, wait a minute. You know, I know I'm not doing anything. Like, where is this coming from? And then the red flags start to go up. I don't know if I've ever been accused of cheating by someone who wasn't cheating on me. And I have kind of some conflicting feelings. I can't even remember why this was on my mind. But cheating is one of those things that, like, we treat like an isolated, oh, it's your personal business. Like, yes, of course, boundaries, things like that. But we've also just proven that you're very untrustworthy. And there's such tropes, you know, around, like, the heteronormative relationships and such that kind of follow these same patterns of, like, high rates of cheating in men. And I don't know what the actual comparison is, but it just seems like it's definitely higher in men. But they also pursue these, like, high-powered positions within companies and whatnot, and they're obviously, like, okay with lying to someone they said they love. That's a major character mark. I was gonna say infraction, but that's not the right word. That's one of those things that's really hard to overlook, because that really does speak to that person's character in a broader sense. Because if they're willing to do that to the parent of their children, to their partner, to the parent of their fur baby, and just deceive and lie and betray, potentially put them in unsafe health situations, but then they hold all this power in, like, a company or something like that. Like, I have a really hard time separating those things. I don't know. It's just something I was mulling over. Because I'm a private person. I like having boundaries and things like that. It's just, once you know somebody's character, it's hard to unknow it. Maybe that's a theme, because that came up with projections too. So what are we going to see that cannot be unseen? I mean, that was kind of answered here. So question. What can't be ignored? There we go. A time to give rather than take. Don't quite have sense of that. New moon in Virgo, but Virgo did come up on the dice roll. Excuse me. Virgo, Pluto, and the 9th house. Difficult lessons, change, transformation. Oh, I wonder if this is one of those situations where you can see someone is so lost that it's not that you're being called to care for them, to get back with them, but to show compassion for just another human being on the planet that is struggling with addiction, is struggling with vices, which is a lot to ask for. A lot to ask for if you've been betrayed, if you've been cheated on, if they've been making your life a living hell, trying to get through the never-ending divorce, custody battles, things like that. But you're already in the gauntlet. You can fight that current, try and fight it with force, or meet it with flow. And I think flow is what is being asked here. Because that ginkgo leaf, another representation of it is yin and yang, harmony, because it splits into two. So, moving forward with flow. How do we do that? How do we move forward with flow? 5 of Cups reversed. Processing your own grief, making time and space for that. And this is a card that does also speak to addiction. Maybe you've leaned on your own vices throughout this process. No judgment. That definitely happens under significant times of stress and things like that. So maybe a check-in with yourself. If you have a therapist, if you attend a support group, anything like that, maybe it's time for addressing the, like, hey, I'm leaning on this really heavily, like refreshing the healthier habits, things like that. It's like I've quit smoking 3 times. It's rough. That's a tough one to do once, but 3 times, that's tough. The wheel in reverse, though. Maybe you're feeling like fortune isn't favoring you right now. Like, you've already been put through so much. And now you have to be compassionate to someone that treated you like garbage. I mean, you don't have to. It's your choice how you want to proceed through the situation. But I just kind of want to throw this out there, going through my own difficult childhood with difficult parents who went through a difficult divorce, and they were dealing with their own addiction issues and things like that throughout that process. Kids absorb a lot through this process. And it is an opportunity to be an example of just a role model to them of how to act within strife, within terrible circumstances, the dissolution of a marriage. And you don't have to be perfect. It's not about being the perfect picture person that handles this perfectly every single time. No. It's about being real and about being authentic at an appropriate level for whatever their age is. But it's that kind of wisdom that comes out of difficulty that you really can't get any other way. And I don't know, like, those lessons, they do, I think, make you kinder. But they do also take quite a bit from you. Because there's so many moments when it would just be so gratifying to do the I told you so's, to give them a piece of your mind. But looking out into the horizon, out into that long-term picture, might be smoother sailing for everybody, carrying on in a compassionate way. It's a big ask. And it doesn't mean that you have any kind of obligation to, like, be their therapist, anything like that. That's what their therapist is for. And still have boundaries with compassion and empathy. They're very much needed. King of Swords in reverse. And this might be particularly challenging with this individual. This is like a malignant narcissist card in the reverse position for me. That really manipulative, antagonistic person. Almost like a final boss fight, if you will. Of maybe you've gone through this several times in your life. I feel like that happens to a lot of us who have dealt with antagonistic personalities. They tend to repeat, even if it's not in the same way or even in the same arena. They kind of find their way into your life, which makes me wonder, is it really anything that we're doing to draw them in? I'm inclined to say no. I think the rates of antagonistic personalities are underreported, is my personal opinion. Just because of the nature of things. So you might be really in for it, really in for a fight. And you are not obligated to take care of this person, to take care of another adult, especially someone that put you through hell, and your kids, and your pets. They need to take accountability for their own stuff. They also have the free will to not. That's entirely up to them. I think the most important thing is the healthiest environment possible under the circumstances for the dependents is the goal. And of course yourself would be included in that. You would be going where they are, right? That's the idea. But that as the lighthouse in the storm, I think will take you in the right direction. At least hopefully. That's mini. Just taking the bottom one. The Gray, Bad Omens. Interesting. A song about the cost of getting what you wanted. Got what you wanted, but it still wasn't enough. So maybe that's a reflection of, I don't know, some risky behavior of the other person. Maybe they, I don't know, came into some money and it fueled addiction, it fueled vices. I feel like if the reward, whatever that is for you, comes in when you're in an unbalanced state, because none of us are perfect, all of us are human, we have our own temptations and such. But if you get the reward before you're really ready for it, before being able to like hold the gravity of whatever that reward is for you, it can easily slip through your fingers and have an extreme toll on your life. And that would be not only a very hard lesson for them to endure, but for you to witness. So take it easy on yourself. Take it easy on the dependents too, because they might be acting out in response to the environmental factors right now. Some music, the weather's starting to turn up, maybe some time in the park, something like that. But one day at a time. I know these situations are extremely difficult, and you will get to the other side of it. So, overall, I hope this helps. I hope this resonates, and if it doesn't, I hope the next one does. Thank you so much.